Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
We'd like to thank Woodbine for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Woodbine open now through December, featuring great racing, including the King's Plate coming up in August, Turf Champions Day with the Woodbine Mile in September, and much, much more. Woodbine Racing, great racing north of the border. Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. I'm Seth Merrow in the studio, and as usual on a Sunday, a little stakes recap action. And as usual, after a Triple Crown race, we'll focus yesterday, Preakness Day, Friday, Black-Eyed Susan Day. Obviously, the highlights of the 2 days, but a lot of great undercard stakes as well. And as per usual on these days, our man Steve Big, boots on the ground, as we like to say. He's been in Pimilco, he's been in Maryland at Pimilco all week long in prep for the race. He's actually boots in the car now on the way home, but I don't blame him after a road trip. But we reached out to get some thoughts on the week, the lead up, and the last couple of days at racing down in Pimlico. Steve, good morning.
Seth, good morning.
And again, nice job in the lead up this week on the radio. So good work there as well. And you sent some pictures in. Before we get started, why don't you just give us a little overview, and you can go through the photos you sent. Looks like you and Tina enjoying a couple of days down in Baltimore, which I would guarantee involves some crab cakes.
Crab. They have on everything. They put crab on the egg. Everywhere you look, they'll shove crab. The dish on Friday night, there was crab in it. And why not? It was tremendous. You know, I love it down there, and I love Pimlico. I mean, I love the new one, but you know, the old threadbare and kind of ramshackle Pimlico is fine by me. I know it's a favorite whipping post, the way Aqueduct is for some people, but I love being there. And you know, other than the rough weather, I mean, it is a funny place. We get either 90-degree heat or a rainy day like yesterday, but everybody powers through it. You know, we play the outdoors, and you just roll with it, and that's what everybody did. It was a largely safe day. For the most part, I think Leah Lucas's horse, the second Lucas horse now, Just Feel, came out with an ankle, with a sesamoid fracture. But otherwise, it was the 2 good days of racing, and actually 3 if you fold in Thursday, and on to Saratoga.
Yeah, no question about it. Looking forward to it. Everybody is up here. One of the pictures, the last picture we showed, and the guys can bring that up again. Again, you've been on a road trip for a while, and we didn't have you on last week. You were down in Nashville for the steeplechase race, and you had the picture, you and Tina again, with it's just, I got to get down there. I got to get there and get to Far Hill. It's just a big crowd behind you. And that was a great day of racing, too, highlighted by snap decision, winning again in the big race.
It's tremendous. And, I'd like to think that Saratoga goers enjoy the steeplechase. But when you go to the hunt meet, that really is the authentic scenario that really is what steeplechase is about. And I really invite people to look at the schedule, find a place to take it in. Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland, up the Eastern Seaboard. They start in South Carolina, work their way up. This was the last weekend. These last 2 days is the last weekend until the fall now, because they'll come to Colonial and Saratoga, including the new inaugural Peggy Steinman the day after Belmont. 3 weeks from today, they'll run a brand new Grade 1 at Saratoga. So try to take this in. It's a very different slant on a day at the race.
Yeah, as I say, I'm envious when I see the pictures at these events, because I like the steeplechase races, and it looks like a lot of fun. But a lot of fun certainly down in Baltimore over the past couple of days, and let's jump right in. I had a bankroll yesterday, and I kind of took a big shot at the end of the day. I had a little something going early, and a couple of the races kind of threw a monkey wrench into things. But at the end of the day, I still had a little money left, and I took a shot. I had Catching Freedom over Mystic Dan over Tuscan Gold. I thought they were the three best horses, and I went heavy on a Catching Freedom over Mystic Dan Exacta, which would have popped over $1,000, been great for the bankroll team. And at the top of the stretch, I thought we have a chance here. But as it turns out, Seize the Gray, the Wayne Lucas horse, Jaime Torres kind of walks the dog and lulls him to sleep a little bit on the front end, and he winds up having plenty left in the stretch. And a nice storyline, didn't have the horse, but again, the stories are always fun. The coach, Wayne Lucas, wins another Preakness, and Jaime Torres in his first Triple Crown race, only been riding for, 2 or 3 years, gets it done here. Mystic Dan, Catching Freedom run well, but they're second and third up against the pace a little bit in there. What were your thoughts in the Preakness yesterday? We're watching them go around the first turn.
Well, the storyline, and in terms of the pace and in terms of the way this race was anticipated to unfold, when Moose came out, it became very obvious that there were only two horses that were eligible to take the lead in here or to create the pace. And it was Seize the Gray coming out of the Pate Mile and Imagination. I mean, that was what we anticipated. Part of the discussion was maybe a third horse, jumps in and takes advantage of Booth's absence to try to boost the pace along. Seize the Gray was tremendous in here. In fact, the figure just was posted. He gets 100 buyer. And the interesting thing about what transpires early is Frankie Dettori deciding not to press the pace and not to go. He had every opportunity. I mean, Imagination probably wasn't good enough anyway, but he had every opportunity to at least stay up on the front with Seize the Gray, and he backs off. And then after the race, he's talking about, then my horse got ranked on me. Well, then give him his head and let him, give him free rein and let him run. Instead, you get to the backstretch, and here's Seize the Gray and Jaime Torres as relaxed as can be. Forget it. When those ears went up, it was over. It was obvious on the backstretch they weren't going to get this horse. And then everybody took their shots. Mystic Dan ran a courageous race, and he tested him. He came up to him. It looked for a couple of strides like he might go by, and no, he wasn't going by. Seize the Gray extends. Catching Freedom does what he does, which is basically chase and clunk up. He's got no excuse for anything the last 2 weeks. And as for Tuscan Gold, Jazz said he hated the track, and he obviously had to be motivated early, but he was not good. And I think the horse, I mentioned Just Steel getting hurt, and I talked to Wayne this morning. I stopped at Pimilco before we left and talked to Wayne a little bit. And I said, "How did Just Steel come out?" I said, "I thought he was the winner at the top of the stretch." And he said he got hurt. He broke sesamoid in his ankle, and that'll probably finish him. And it looked like for a couple of strides at the top of the stretch that he was going to catch them, and then basically flattened out to be fifth. Everybody else was dreadful. Imagination, awful. Uncle Heavy had no excuse at all. So, that leaves us with Seize the Gray and an amazing story. Wayne Lucas with his seventh Preakness, a guy that cannot be, a guy that they can't push into retirement. And they just can't. He's not going to stop. He's got apparently a barn full of 2-year-olds that are about to start running. Jaime Torres, what a wonderful story. Puerto Rican jock coming out of the jock school down there. He's got exactly 2 graded stake wins, the Pate Mile and the Preakness. Liz Morris, his agent, that's a great story. There's a lot of nice things about this. Then there's the My Racehorse aspect, which is kind of interesting and a little crazy. Wayne Lucas actually has done more for the micro share and the club concept than anybody I can think of. Don't forget that he had Warriors Club, the Churchill Downs Racing Club horse, and that was his first experience with 150 owners. Now he's got 2,700 owners. So there's a lot of nice things. The best part of all of the weekends, these 2 weekends, Seth, we have gone through the Derby and the Preakness. We've had two tremendous weekends of racing. All of the naysayers have been drowned out. All their nonsense, all the crap that Joe Drape and the New York Times with their documentary tried to drum up, that was drowned out. Even the Kelsey brothers, the fascinating thing with Travis coming to the race, and then Jason, talking about the Secretariat and steroids. Even that was, has frankly been good. There's been nothing but positive attention to the game for these 2+ weeks. Now we're going to end up, finishing up at Saratoga. I'm kind of glad there's not going to be a Triple Crown try, because that just would have added, a layer of added insanity that we didn't need. It's going to be very exciting getting to Saratoga in a couple of weeks. I'm going to broadcast all week from the track. This is turning into a fabulous Triple Crown season. The undercard races, there's some tremendous stories there as well. How about Cherie DeVoe?
Yeah.
I mean, we want to talk a Capital District story, a homegrown talent that just is absolutely busting out all over, and couldn't have been happier for Cherie. It was surreal for her on Friday. Even went into Saturday with the dinner party, having a chance for a 4th stake win on the weekend. There's Mark Hennig. How about Mark Hennig's horse, Gunsong, and that terrific effort? Big win from Mark. Been a while between graded stake drinks for him. There just was nothing but positives to be gleaned.
Totally agree. And Cherie DeVoe on Friday. Yeah, it seems like I said yesterday when we were doing the morning shows after her Good Friday, I said, it seems to me, it's anecdotal. I'd have to go back and look. It may have been a little longer, but it seems like the last 6 months or so, she has really come into her own, certainly. And Friday kind of put an exclamation point on that. She had a good day. Jaime Torres, again, with the win in the Preakness, good, and Wayne Lucas. And you had two nice trainer-jockey stories going back to the Derby. Kenny McPeak and Brian Hernandez, nice team there. Wayne Lucas sticks with Torres after the Pat Day Mile win and gets the Preakness victory yesterday. Yeah, so the highlights over the past couple of weeks, the exclamation points have been very good. But as you say, the undercard's good as well. Let's take a look at some of that action. Let's go back and look at the dinner party. In the dinner party, I like Beatbox. I took a little shot with that one, took some action at 5-2 as the second choice. Running Bee was the 9-5 favorite, but winds up running third. My top pick, Beatbox, winds up 8th in the field of 9. But Balnikov, who I didn't put in the mix, but gets it done under Frankie Dettori at $12 and change. Crabs and Beer second, and as I say, Running Bee runs third. What are your thoughts on the dinner party?
Well, this is, I thought, a tremendous performance by Balnikov. And speaking of local talent, Dick Powell, Dick on Wednesday with me, Dick only gave out one horse for the entire weekend, and it was Balnikov.
Oh, nice.
A last to first, what's interesting about this, a last to first performance from a horse that has been spending his time in California. I mean, yes, he's got, the heritage and the upbringing, to like soft turf, but he hasn't seen it in quite a while. That was a tremendous effort, and a lot of times when you're on soft turf, it's tough for horses from off the pace to quicken. But he went from last to first. Nice win for Phil D'Amato, and Phil is known as the West Coast Chad, basically the West Coast Chad Brown, and this was a nice win for him.
Let's take a look at the turf sprint. I was looking at your picks as I was going through the day yesterday, and I think you had Grooms All Business in the mix. I did not. I
had him on top.
Yeah, that's what I thought, which good for you. I off the layoff, I just couldn't pull the trigger there. Hadn't been seen since last August, but that was a good call. It will be number 1, Grooms All Business, getting it done. I liked Whitty, the number 11, who's just going to get by. Oh, that was frustrating. I thought the Merriman horse looked very good and ran well. Just gets past late, runs second. Whitty, Smooth B runs third. Give us your thoughts in the Jim McKay Turf Sprint. And what put you on Grooms All Business off the long layoff?
Sprinters, I don't worry about sprinters.
Okay.
They run well fresh.
Yeah.
I mean, that you typically, the big concern here was the soft turf. And frankly, Whitty's not known as a horse that likes soft going. So that was a big effort from Merriman, and she basically ran him because, not only was there a soft turf question with Whitty, but there was also a distance question because he, he likes it a little bit longer, his turf sprint. So, anyway, these are funny. My policy a lot of times, Seth, is on the turf sprint is to just pick somebody and live with it, because they're so closely bunched, and you have to sort of come up with a scenario, whether it's a horse that you think is going to wire, or whether you think there's a ton of speed and you find a horse that you think is going to come off the pace. Like, for instance, I'll go back to Friday for a second, and the turf sprint on Friday. The race was over for me the minute the gate opened. I liked, oh my gosh, All That Magic, and he blew the brake. She blew the brake, and that was it. Race was over. So you pick your turf sprinter and just live with it. I don't like to spread too often. I like groups. Duarte is a guy too that I think does a very good job. A guy that there's a few turf sprint specialists in the Mid-Atlantic region. He's one of them. That Michael Moore is another guy. Brandon Culp that won. These are guys that are very good with turf sprinters, and so take a shot, and we got a decent price.
Yeah, very good. Nice $13 again with the top pick there. The Sir Barton, 3-year-olds on the undercard. Maybe some up-and-comers to keep our eyes on. I liked Imperial Gun. I was looking at your picks. You were in the same boat. I had the top 3 in the mix, but I will say, again, the bankroll yesterday, this was in the mix of a pick bet for me, and I had used all 3 of them, but certainly I wanted the 6-1 Gould's Gold to get up. Number 6 is Gould's Gold. Number 5, Corporate Power, winds up to be the winner as the favorite. Number 10, Imperial Gun, runs third. There was an inquiry involving the winner and the third-place finisher, and you can kind of see them come together here in the stretch run. I looked, I think it was worth the objection in the inquiry to take a look, but when I looked at the head-on, it seemed kind of mutual. To me, the no call was the right call there. But what were your thoughts on the Sir Barton?
I thought it was a pretty confusing race coming in, and I thought there was any number of horses that were eligible to win this. And the board was right. I mean, everybody bet Corporate Power like the race had been run. Was happy for Shug and for Don Adams. Don Adams spends a lot of money, and this was a nice performance. Gould's Gold was interesting because I talked to Kenny about him on Friday morning when I was just arriving at the track, and I said, that horse looks okay in there. And he said he needs racing. He said that's a horse, he said, that's going to get better and better than as he gets experience. So I think Kenny probably was very impressed with that effort. Decent enough group in there. Just looking, the figs are out, and Corporate Power just an 87 buyer, so not a not a big set of numbers in here. I mentioned Seize the Gray got the 100. By the way, back to Seize the Gray for a minute. You do realize that the top 3 finishers all were horses that ran 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Right?
Came back.
That needs to be stressed.
Yeah, a couple of them out of the Derby, one out of the Pate Mile on the Derby undercard.
Exactly.
And I will just reiterate, I thought it was a nice run from Gould's Gold in that there was the 16th pole, inside the 16th pole. I thought, he's third and maybe a length or 2 back. And then he came again in the last few strides to get up in that photo for the win, wound up second in there. All right, let's take a look at the Murphy on the card. They're going to go a mile on the grass here. I had Fulmineo in the third spot. I used Abrumar on top. That one is going to wind up third at 7-2. Fulmineo wound up to be the 2-1 choice, and between those two under the wire is Crystal Quest. But Flavien Prat on board for Arnaud Delacour. Wins it pretty easily here. What did you make of the Murphy?
Well, Fulmineo made a lot of sense in here for Arnaud Delacour, and the horse and it's actually, I mean, if we're going to talk our own selection stuff, did very well in here because Crystal Quest and Phil Mineo were my 1-2. I got to tell you, Javier Castellano probably would like that race back. He really cost Crystal Quest the win here. For starters, they took the fence down, and the inside part of the turf course, and frankly the inside part of the main track, they were dead as can be.
Yeah.
You had dead rails on both courses. And here's Javier down inside on the fence where the going was the heaviest. The minute he went into the two path and came off the rail, Crystal Quest immediately, came after the lead at that point. It was too late. Phil Mineo had won. Javier also got Crystal Quest in trouble at the 8th hole and had to check up. They run this race 10 times. Crystal Quest probably wins 5 of them. But anyway, Phil Mineo, did figure, and being out on the crown, the crown part of the track, benefits because, that's the part that drains the fastest and probably has the best footing. So nice performance there. Phil Mineo with Slavey and Pratt. I mean, you have to, when you look at these turf races on these big days, really the first jock you should be looking for is Pratt. He's unbelievable. He gives his horse, whatever the mount is, he gives them every chance to win. He seems to put his horse in the right position on a constant basis.
Yeah, only the second win of the career, and a nice stakes win on the Preakness Day undercard. All right, let's take a look at the Maryland Sprint. This was a nice win for Super Chow, who had started that career with a lot of talent down in Florida and has been kind of mixing it up various parts of the country in the last, looking down the page since, and it's been in New York running well. The Tom Fool victory, 3rd in the Carter. I thought the cut back to 6 was going to be beneficial. I had him underneath. I thought Jackson Traveler was going to match up nicely with this crew. Not so much for Jackson Traveler, who winds up 5th, but Super Chow got it done. I was a little surprised that Prevalence took the action. Favorite, 5-2. It was kind of lukewarm in a short field, but I kind of feel like Prevalence best days are maybe behind them, but it was a nice win for Super Chow.
Yeah, I thought this was another confusing group, like the Sir Barton. I thought almost anybody in here could have won. So I mean, I wasn't surprised. Kind of, from a personal standpoint, kind of hurt me because I really did not use Super Chow at all. You make certain decisions and just build your tickets from there. But it is a nice hard hitter and shows up more often than he doesn't. And I'm just looking from a number standpoint, 96 buyer here for Super Chow.
Very good. And Javier Castellano on board there. Gallarette, mile and 16, on the turf. We're going to see Fluffy Socks get it done. It's Chad Brown. I had that one underneath in the mix. I took a little pop in here with Blissful. Blissful is going to wind up disappointing, for me anyway, a disappointing 4th. But Fluffy Socks, Irad Ortiz on board for Chad Brown. It just makes it look easy. Chart margin was just under 8 lengths in here. It's a field of only 5, but gets it done pretty convincingly in the Gallarette. Your thoughts?
Well, there's nothing. I mean, what are you going to say?
Yeah.
She was one of the more certain winners on the whole weekend, and she had come here as a 3-year-old, and she had won the 3-year-old filly race. Chad does such a good job placing all these good turf horses. And there really wasn't anybody in here that it didn't come as any surprise that she was gonna she would prevail out of this.
The Chick Lang, the race just before that. I took a little shot with Pettengas Twin, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, 7-1. Again, ran 6th in there, but I took a little roll of the dice. The winner, Frost Free, I had right underneath in the mix. That one went off as the 8-5 favorite. Cats by 5 runs second. Mr. Skylight runs third. But in the Chick Lang for the 3-year-olds sprinting, it is Frost Free getting it done. Irod Ortiz on board for Brett Crichton. Your thoughts on the Chick Lang?
Actually, this is a nice effort by Frost Free. It's not worth. I thought that the 5-2 was a big underlay from a line standpoint. The morning line, actually, not that I'm not a morning line, somebody that bashes morning line, but there were some tough calls, I think, for Brian Nadeau on these two cards, and I rank my selections off of morning lines and the anticipated odds that I think a horse is going to end up. So I'm kind of had the same thinking as you did. I didn't think that the Frost Free at 2-1 quote unquote had to win. I also actually keyed off of the Bingus twins, Catahoula Moon, Cats by 5, and Frost Free. I thought I thought this was a competitive group, and Frost Free ends up with a serious number in here actually for a 93 buyer coming out of this. So nice win.
I was going to ask you the number because that'll play into, is this a 3-year-old sprinter we have to watch in some of those 3-year-old sprint races? Off the number, I think probably, yeah. And also started the day stakes-wise at Pimilco yesterday with Skip At. It will be number 4, Apple Picker, getting it done. I went with the favorite, Disco Ebo, who went off at 6-5 and disappointed at running 5th in the field of 7. But Apple Picker was certainly playable. Another one I had right underneath in the second slot gets it done. The chart margin is going to be just under 2 lengths. Swal runs second. Lala Frost runs third at 11-1. Apple Picker, it's the husband-wife team, Sheldon and Brittany Russell. Your thoughts in there?
Well, this again was a group. Here's a solid group of filly and mare sprinter types, and I think you mentioned pretty much the right horses. I also keyed off at Disco Ebo, but Apple Picker had to be respected, 7-5 favorite, and he ended up actually getting a nice number. It was over 3-1, right? Yeah, 840, paid 840. Yeah. So, and that's what I mean. Not that I'm not questioning Brian's morning line, but that was kind of the scenario that you dealt with a lot of. Here's a horse that was 7-5 and goes off at 3-1.
Well, you said it. I mean, you looked at a few of the races and said you saw them being up in the air. Those are the kind of races it's tough to make the line for.
Yeah, and what was interesting? It wasn't like, and Friday they had bigger fields on Friday than they did on Saturday, and amazingly, the Preakness, which only ended up with 8, the Preakness kind of saved the day. The wagering was down 3% because you had smaller fields on Saturday than certainly than what you anticipated from Churchill, and of course, having 2 races taken off the turf, and I guess we have to talk about this.
Yeah.
I mean, for them to not. I know trying to keep everything on the grass. And in fact, Mike Trombetta called me at about 9 a.m. Before they announced the changes and even announced the condition of the track. And I said, what's going on with turf? And he said, they just told me, the Track Super just told me they're going to keep everything on. And then about a half an hour later, they take the first off. Then they take the fifth off while the multi-race element had already, started. So they put people in a terrible bind. It's incredibly frustrating for horse players. For them to try to pass that turf course off as a good condition, and then calling the racetrack muddy when it was sloppy. There were some people. There were some people that were. A little confused and kind of rolling their eyes about these elements. And this is stuff that the industry has to do a better job and get right. I mean, it takes away from, what was otherwise, a good weekend of racing, and everybody looks forward to this. you can't make unforced errors like this, weekend after weekend.
Yeah, the decision to take the fifth off after that, multi-race wagering, you can't do that. And then I was out in the front half doing the bankroll yesterday, and I had 2 or 3 people walk up to me after that situation and said, well, is this later race on? Is this later race on? And I pointed out, when the 5th race came up, I'll also be a little critical of Pimilco and Maryland in that when you looked at the simulcast screen, when the 5th came up, it wasn't clear what races were off and what races were on. And a lot of simulcast facilities show multiple tracks, so they don't have the sound up. A lot of venues have now gone to, hey, we're on the turf, races 8 and 9. You can see that up in the corner of the screen. And I think everybody has to you have to let people know visually, because as I say, a lot of the simulcast outlets aren't playing any audio, and so you're leaving people kind of guessing. And if you have done it earlier in particular, you're also having people who are probably reluctant now to bet into a later one, thinking, well, this might happen to me. And so, yeah, that was not a good situation.
Well, they were never going to take the stakes off the turf. That part was certain that the stakes were going to stay on at that point. But when they took the first off, they should have realized. The second was also on the turf. That was the allowance race, and that was a huge score, personally, with that Vesuvio that went off at an insane price. I mean, that horse was 15-1 morning line and ends up paying $80. That was crazy. That horse was live as can be. Anyway, the point is that you have to make decisions and bite the bullet. I know that they don't want to have horses scratching out of the off the turf and hurting the hand, but you're hurting the handle in a different way when you send this bad messaging to the horse player. That's worse. The horse player is quite happy to adjust to the Here's the funny thing, Seth. They didn't scratch all the MTOs early on.
Exactly.
And so if you're sending that message, well then there's a chance we're going to take this off. Like, whoa. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and make the decision.
Yeah, no question. All right, let's go back and look at Friday, and we'll take a look at the Black Eyed Susan here. You mentioned it earlier. This was a fun result. Everybody likes Mark Hennig, and nice to see him in the winner's circle in the Black Eyed Susan with Gun Song for longtime owner Lee Lewis, an offspring of Gun Runner. Nice victory. Went off as the 2-1 favorite. Corposo runs second. Call Another Play runs third in here. But as I say, a nice kind of happy result around the racetrack. John Velasquez on board. That added to it as well. Your thoughts on Friday's Black Eyed Susan?
Well, it's funny. And again, this sort of gets back to the morning line scenario, which is, when you looked at the horse, at least for me with Gun Song, in fact, Andy Serling and I talked about this on Tuesday. She looked to me like a standout, and then when you see that 9-2 line, and you think this horse should be either favored or vying for favoritism, and so I don't know. I picked her as a best value, top selection, and. Then she ends up getting bet down to 2-1. I mean, I feel bad, bringing this up over and over again. But that was sort of a consistent element of decision making. At least going in, was what price are we going to get? What horse is this price going to be? Anyway, Gun Song looked the best going in on paper, and she absolutely, demolished that field. She actually was very similar to Torpedo Anna when you go back to the Kentucky Oaks. She had that same field, and if she ran her A race, nobody was going to beat her, and that's how it came out. Happy for happy for Mark. It's a nice win.
Yeah, he certainly looked very happy afterwards, justifiably so. I thought I saw, but now I don't remember it. Do you have a number on her?
On the filly?
Yeah, gun song.
88.
88. All right. I thought I saw it out there. Pimilco special also on Friday afternoon. And Kingsbarns looked very good in here, coming off of a couple of wins to start the season, including the stake at Keeneland last time. But gets run down by Pyrenees, who I thought was an interesting player in here. Red Route 1 winds up a little bit disappointing as the second choice, running fourth. Kingsbarns was 3-5, and as I say, gets run down by Pyrenees. Part of that very, very nice weekend for Cherie DeVoe. Brian Hernandez on board. Your thoughts on the upset in the Pimilco Special?
Well, in retrospect, how much of an upset is this? This horse, has gotten really good.
Yeah.
What are you going to say? What is that? 5 straight? 4 straight?
Four.
Four
Yeah.
straight.
Yeah.
4 straight. Brought the maiden in December, and obviously took a big step forward getting down to Fairgrounds, which is not unusual. Fairgrounds is a place that is well known for you bring a horse that might be less than 100% fit, a horse that's getting going. For years, Bobby Frankel used to tell me you would bring a horse, down to Fairgrounds that you were targeting for a 3-year-old campaign, and by the time you finished up in March, you'd have a absolute dead fit horse. Well, that's certainly what has transpired with Pyrenees. Maiden win. Cherie was very patient, jumped up to an 80 buyer, comes back in that allowance, 88 buyer. Then she points, she obviously made some decision making, at that point to, pick out some, handicap type races, gets a little freshening, comes back 90 buyer in that allowance win in the slot at Keeneland, and then in the first graded stake try, wins a historic race like the Pimlico Special. Tremendous job. And this is what is distinguishing Cherie. The planning, the execution, the patience, now up to a 93 buyer. Now you have a horse that can go 1.25 miles. I'm sure she will now focus on something like the Whitney as the intermediate opportunity. All with an eye on working toward the Breeders' Cup Classic. Cherie is a star, and there's no stopping her.
Yeah, and been interesting to watch over, as I say, the past few months she seemed to have kind of really blossomed, and it's been fun to see recently additions to the team. She's married to David Ngordo, bloodstock guy, but brought some of the Carrolls into the team. It's going to be interesting to watch, and this one's going to be interesting to watch going forward, what kind of spots they pick for Pyrenees as well. All right, the very one, race number 11 on Friday afternoon, turf sprinters, and it's going to be number 10. Future is now Paco Lopez on board for our friend Mike Trombetta, getting it done pretty easily in the end. Chart margin's just over 2 lengths. Shoshana runs second, and Hollywood Walk runs third. But goes off as the favorite and gets it done like the favorite. Future is now in the very one. Your thoughts there?
Well, Trombetta called me yesterday morning, before we had left, because I didn't see him on Friday, and I answered the phone by saying, "You killed me! You killed me dead!" Yeah, absolutely. Because I was against it. All that magic was by feature horse on Friday, and the gates opened, and the it was one of those. What's that joke? The gates open, you lose. Absolutely, she didn't get out of the gate. So that race was, at least for me, she was second choice, actually third choice at just under 3-1. Anyway, Future is now. One thing about what was going on with Trombetta, that he was on like an 0 for 20 skid going into the weekend, and was 0 for 8 at Pimlico since they moved over from Laurel. He was ice cold, and you shouldn't really let something like that cloud your judgment, because Mike's too good. But he was cold as can be. And it wasn't crazy about that performance in the King Leatherberry, certainly, when she was flat-footed. But, she is now, she's Super 2 at Pimilco. And certainly the 5 furlong might be a little better for her than the 5.5. So future is now, and Paco Lopez had a very good weekend. When Paco's mind is on the task at hand, and he's not looking for somebody to assault, he does a great job.
10th race was the Miss Preakness, 3-year-old fillies sprinting. I like this result. My top 2 were flip-flopped, and I was pretty happy with the exacta. The exacta for a couple of bucks was $50 here. As Mystic Lake gets away at 5-1, I had You Almost Had Me on top over Mystic Lake. But again, top 2 flip-flop. 2-1 choice was You Almost Had Me. But Mystic Lake, the number 1 horse, gets it done. You Almost Had Me runs second, and Discreet Ops runs third. But as I say, with a couple of horses I thought were pretty logical, nice little exacta, but an easy win over 4 lengths for Mystic Lake in the Miss Preakness. What are your thoughts there?
Well, she just ran them off their feet. That was some performance. This is Safi Joseph with that nice client of his, that C2 Racing. That really has emerged as a wide operation that has all kinds of nice horses.
White Barrio, right? Yeah.
Yeah, et cetera. Yeah. No, this is they're a big player. Here's that guy. Here's Flavian Pratt.
Yeah.
Not that this horse wasn't eligible, but let's be honest, she was stepping up into more serious company. Her last win came against that restricted in that Florida Cup, against the Florida Breds and such. So and also leading from the rail in a sprint like this is no bargain. So this was a terrific ride by Pratt. He got her out of the gate, took control, and there were some horses that were cutting back. That you typically I look to anyway in sprints, and there was nothing going on. None of the turnbacks were able to impact it, and this is a nice win. Wins off by 4.5.
The Hilltop, a mile on the grass for the 3-year-old fillies. And again, another part of the big weekend for Cherie DeVoe. John Velasquez on board. She feels pretty, went off as a 3-5 favorite, lived up to it, wins pretty easily here, running second. Number 5, Just Better. Number 4, Waves of Mischief, runs third. But again, Velasquez on board for Cherie DeVoe. Part of a very, very nice Friday afternoon with the 3 stakes wins for her. But she feels pretty easy winner in the Hilltop.
Well, this was one of the most anticipated returns and performances of the weekend. It's been away, and obviously, a big winner last year, for Cherie, and they ran a very good race in the Breeders' Cup in the juvenile. This was Cherie's first Grade 1 winner. If you think back to the Natalma at Woodbine. In fact, we were at Churchill. She was at Churchill that day and watched the race over. They had that temporary winner's circle by the First Turn Club, and it was so much fun. With she was inside the First Turn Club, and she watched it. And then she had a horse running in that would have been the Pocahontas, I think, or the race that I presented, that West Saratoga one, the
Jockey Club,
the Iroquois. No, the Iroquois.
Earlier.
Jockey Club in November.
Earlier.
This was the September thing. Anyway, this is a serious filly that now, that's a great way to start the season, and she'll start to focus in on the series in New York, all of the Oaks series, the Belmont Oaks, the Saratoga Oaks, and the Jockey Club Oaks, etc. This is probably Cherie's. This is probably the closest thing, to some of the Chad, some of the ones she had with Chad that, that were kind of under her wing. This is a serious horse, and got a very, very bright season ahead.
Yeah, as you say, a nice comeback effort, certainly. So we'll look for that one throughout the summer. And another one that part of that big weekend for Cherie, looking very good, stepping out of the Grade 1 Apple Blossom with Shotgun Hottie. In this group, just seemed to have the edge. The betting public making this one the 4-5 favorite. Shotgun Hottie gets it done over Musical Mischief and Queen of Missoula. It is, again, Cherie DeVoe, Paco Lopez on board, but as the 4-5 favorite. Again, a pretty easy winner for Shotgun Hottie coming out of the Apple Blossom and into the DuPont on Friday afternoon. What did you think of Shotgun Hottie?
Well, you got to make, first of all, you mentioned the Apple Blossom performance where she was 4th beat 8 lengths. And the Apple Blossom is becoming a key race because, of course, the horse that finished in front of her, Free Like a Girl, turned around and then was second in the Grade 1 at Churchill 2 weeks ago, in the La Troyenne.
Yeah.
So the Apple Blossom, produces 2 big performances, and I give the public credit. I thought this was a fairly competitive race. I was sort of against Julia Shining, who I think there's no more shine to Julia Shining. But that Musical Mischief of Michael McCarthy's, wanted to give that one a long look. And, Shotgun Hottie absolutely was one that could win. But, I was surprised that the public jumped all over her and drilled her down to 4-5. But she just absolutely dominated here. I mean, you could see when she moved to the lead, and I don't think Paco had to really do much. Maybe just kind of shake the reins at her, and she took over and drew off.
Yeah,
so,
interested to see where they go with her, because I would think coming out of the Grade 1 4th and getting this nice little confidence builder. So I'll be interested to see if they bounce back.
Well, the Ogden Phipps, the Phipps is the obvious place to point. She came out with a 98 fire, too. Got a career best.
Steve, before we let you go, you're down in Baltimore all weekend, so I'm sure you talked to folks about the situation down there. Some legislation has been passed that makes things look the future a little brighter. There's going to be a new Pimilco. Give us your thoughts and what kind of reaction you were getting from the folks down in Maryland on the situation there.
Well, we've tracked this for 15 years with Alan Foreman. It's not, it's 3 times a year, basically, we've checked in with Alan as various plans were floated and so forth. This was obviously a long time coming, and it was an arduous and very contentious series of discussions and negotiations. The Pimlico plan, as it ultimately became known, this is a done deal. I read some articles these last few days about a tenuous future, and even Tim Layton wrote a bizarre, his recap of the Preakness. He called the future murky. The future's not murky. The governor signed legislation on last Thursday, and it's legislation that provides $500 million in bonds, state-issued bonds that's going to pay for the new building and is going to pay for the dormitories, is going to pay for a training center. The 2 training center, Bowie is out as a potential training center. They're down to 2 finalists. Then on this past Thursday, there was a signing by the public activities, I forget the name of the committee in the city. That's been signed. I mean, this is delivered. There's no speculation. There's no murkiness. There's a new building that is going to be built. They're going to run Preakness 150. They didn't want to run 150 at Laurel. They're going to run it on the ground. They'll run 151 at Laurel while the new building is being built. The hope is that they can run Preakness 152 back on the new ground with the building either done or almost done. So there's no murkiness. There's no indecision. There's nothing but blue sky. And it's great for Park Heights. It's going to help revitalize the neighborhood. There is all kinds of positives associated with this new plan, and the future of Maryland racing is at Old Hilltop. Laurel will be developed. The Stronach Group can do whatever they want with Laurel as part of this deal. They're out long term. I mean, they're basically, they're going to be licensed essentially to run the Preakness for the next 3 years. But then at whatever point that things are finalized and racing is full-time at Pimilco, it'll be run by the state and as a nonprofit with the horsemen. So the future is fabulous, and anybody closely associated with Maryland racing should be excited, and they are excited.
You had Tom Rooney on the show this week, Maryland guy, in the horse racing game with the family for a long time, head of the NTRA. And I know going back a couple of months, he was talking about making the family farm one of the training facilities. Is that still in the mix?
Yeah, of course. The Shamrock Farm, as it's called, and that's the closer of the two facilities to Pimilco. There just isn't enough. The footprint of Pimilco itself, there just isn't enough land to have enough barn space to have all the horses that they anticipate, in Maryland. So they've got to add this training facility, and the horsemen are they're not thrilled. I mean, they would they would have preferred to have one location for everything, and that could have been Laurel. But Laurel, people may not believe this or understand it, but the physical plant at Laurel is in worse shape than Pimilco, believe it or not. And there was nothing to save it at Laurel. It would have had to have been completely rebuilt as well. So, this scenario is so much more beneficial to everybody involved. And yes, I mean, the Shamrock Farm, the family, the Rooney family, and of course, for those that aren't aware, Tom Rooney, his grandfather was Art Rooney, and they've been ingrained in American gambling enterprises for a century, and have famously owned dog tracks and racetracks. They had their own breeding operation. Shamrock at one time was a fairly productive racing operation as well. So they'll see about this. Tom has to try to distance himself a little bit from the whole scenario because he doesn't want there to be any thoughts of impropriety or favoritism, etc. But they very well could utilize Shamrock Farm as the training facility.
Well, we're certainly rooting for everybody down in Maryland, and looks like they're on the right path, certainly. But, going back to when I first got in the game, they were one of the bedrock, jurisdictions, Washington, D.C. International, Laurel Futurity, and, historic races like that. So rooting for them to get things all squared away and move forward, and it looks like that's the game plan. Steve, appreciate the visit. As always, the boots on the ground. We appreciate the visit day after one of the big Triple Crown races. The next Triple Crown race the day after, we will be live on the set up at Saratoga with Luce on the lead. Looking forward to that. But, again, say hello to Tina. Drive safely. Get home safe. And we'll talk again.
You got it. Bootsy signing on.
Very good. All right, Steve Mick, again, he was down at Pimilco all week long. He's been on a little road trip, Nashville before that, Churchill before that, but he's on his way home now, and he'll be based at home doing the follow-up radio. Check it out this week. I'm sure catching up on all of these stakes races with the major players over on SiriusXM. You can catch it on his website as well. All right, I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show in a moment, but first, the Dark Horse Play of the Day coming up. We'll do that right after this quick break. Stay tuned.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
It only takes one upset to make history, and now you can be part of Saratoga's long tradition at the Dark Horse Mercantile. The Dark Horse Mercantile offers a carefully curated selection of clothing, gifts, and home decor, from one-of-a-kind vintage racing memorabilia to select brands like Barber and Under Armour, as well as exclusive Dark Horse branded merchandise. So celebrate the Dark Horse in all of us at the Dark Horse Mercantile, downtown Saratoga, where the smart bet is always the Dark Horse.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
America, as promised before the break, our Dark Horse Play of the Day today, brought to you by the Dark Horse Mercantile in downtown Saratoga. We want to thank the folks at the Dark Horse Mercantile, their sister store down the street, Impressions of Saratoga, for sponsoring the Dark Horse Play during the Triple Crown season. Today, we'll go to Belmont at the Big A, race number 7. I have it 5 and 6 on top, but I'm going to go with Secret Rules as my Dark Horse Play of the Day at 6-1. First off the claim for Linda Rice, claimed down at Keeneland, claimed from another New York-based guy, Rob Falcone, but claimed for 40. The buyer went back kind of notably in that Keeneland start, but maybe just it was the Keeneland racetrack. Gets back to New York where this horse ran well a couple of starts back, and certainly down the page, there were very good races. I like that Linda claimed for 40. The race was maybe a little bit of a dud, but they come back for the 40. Linda Rice she'll spot to win. And so, off a claim, she's not reluctant to move down if that's the best move, so that they stick at the level of the claim. And with the back numbers, Secret Rules, again, at 6-1 on the morning line. We'll use that as our Dark Horse Play of the Day on this Sunday afternoon. So again, the Dark Horse Play of the Day, Belmont at the Big A, race number 7, horse number 5, Secret Rules. And again, thanks to the folks at the Dark Horse Mercantile and Impressions of Saratoga, right there on Broadway in downtown Saratoga. Stop by. I say it all the time. Believe me, if you stop by and browse through, you will enjoy your time in Dark Horse Mercantile down the street, Impressions of Saratoga. Tell them you saw them here on the network, and enjoy your visit. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for Racing Across America. I almost said OTB Live, but that's coming up. But Racing Across America on this post-Preakness day. Now I think we're really looking forward to Belmont and Saratoga, because I think Derby weekend was a lot of fun. I think Preakness weekend continued that trend, so we will look forward to more of the same in 3 weeks, right up the Northway, Belmont at Saratoga. Looking forward to it. Don't forget, if you aren't headed up to the track on Belmont Stakes Day, you can reserve a seat here at the Clubhouse Racebook. $10 reserves you a seat, pays for your admission. You get a commemorative program, souvenir glass. That's all right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. June 8th, Belmont Stakes Day. We'd love to have you enjoy the afternoon here. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. But again, be back in about an hour and a half or so for OTB Live on this Sunday afternoon. I'm just checking. Belmont post time is 1:05, and our Churchill post time today is 12:45. So yeah, about an hour and a half or so. We'll probably jump in at about 12:30 to kick off OTB Live for Sunday afternoon. Looking forward to it. Hopefully you are too. Hopefully you're flush after a nice couple of days playing Black Eyed Susan Day and Preakness Day. If you are, keep it rolling. If you're not, make something happen on this Sunday. And again, I'll be back in about an hour and a half. OTB Live. We'll see you then. We'd like to thank Woodbine for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Woodbine open now through December, featuring great racing, including the King's Plate coming up in August, Turf Champions Day with the Woodbine Mile in September, and much, much more. Woodbine Racing, great racing north of the border.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital OffTrack Betting.